to talk about one of the most controversial topics there is out there today, and that's the death penalty, and specifically the death penalty in Texas. So hopefully after we get through their presentation today, hopefully you'll have some insight on the death penalty and hopefully view it in whichever direction, whether you're a pro or a con for the death penalty. Grace? The death penalty. Just take a moment and think about one of your loved ones being brutally beaten, stabbed repeatedly, and crying for help as they take their last breath of air. Then after a 3-month search, the authorities found the body dismembered and buried in the woods. Think about it, that's one of your loved ones. How would you want that person to be committed, punished for that heinous crime? I kind of messed that up. But think about that. How would you want them to be punished? Go ahead, Bruce. Today I'm going to discuss some pros to the death penalty in Texas. Then I'm going to cover some cons to the death penalty in Texas, or some people's views of the death penalty in Texas. Then I'm going to discuss 2 major death penalty cases in Texas. Go ahead, Grace. Credibility of this presentation. This information is being passed on to you from articles received from the internet. Article published by David White on About.com. Pros and cons of the death penalty. Article published by Shalou Bati on Buzzle, Death Penalty Pros. Article published by Paul Goodman on Hub Pages, Death Penalty Pros and Cons. And an article published by Mary O'Grady on ExecutedToday.com, 1998 Kenneth Allen McDuff, Texas Nightmare. That is one actual death penalty case I'm going to be discussing. Then the second one, an article published by Joseph Geringer on the Crime Library, Criminal Minds and Methods, the Carla Faye Tucker, Texas Controversial Murderers. Go ahead, Grace. Pros to the death penalty in Texas. The severe punishment that comes with the death penalty deters other criminals from committing heinous crimes because of the fear of the punishment. That's the inside of the death penalty. Hopefully it will deter people from committing these heinous type crimes. And when I'm talking about heinous crimes, is the brutal beatings, the dismemberments, things of that nature. Not just somebody accidentally shooting somebody, but those heinous crimes. The death penalty serves as retribution for the victims' families. Think about how they feel and how they come to closure when the death penalty is executed in the state of Texas or any other state in our nation. Brings some type of closure to them because they lost a loved one. They feel this is the way that person should be punished. Don't know how other people would view it, but that's my view on it. The death penalty utilizes the full extent of the legal system to prevent mistakes from occurring. You understand when they're sentenced to death, it just doesn't happen over a week or a month or a year. It takes years because during that year time frame, those people that are punished are being convicted of the death penalty. They have to go through rigorous trials. They do numerous types of appeals. Therefore, they look at all the evidence created out there to make sure they're not making a mistake. Now we're going to look at some of the cons. Cons to the death penalty in Texas. Does the death penalty really deter criminals from really committing heinous crimes? Does it or does it not? Is it still occurring out there today? Yes, it does. So does it really deter them? Who knows? But we still see it occurring on a daily basis. Does the death penalty really serve as retribution, or does it take away the right to life? That is the most controversial thing right there. A lot of people think that if we punish them through the death penalty, through the execution process, we're taking away the right of life for that individual. And then lastly, does the death penalty really provide a legal system free from error and mistakes? We all make mistakes in our system, and especially in the legal system, there has been mistakes made, but they try to do their best with these appeals processes. And that's what the legal system is built for, to go through those appeals processes. Now we're going to discuss a couple of the cases. Go ahead, Grace. The first one, Kenneth Allen McDuff. And when I was reading through this, I learned some insight on the Kenneth Allen McDuff. If you'll notice, in 1966, Kenneth Allen McDuff was first sentenced to death for a brutal murder of 3 teenagers he kidnapped and killed. He was already on death row. He remained on death row until 1972, when he was released from death row, not prison, but from death row, when the U.S. Supreme Court in Furman v. Georgia struck down all death penalty statutes in the United States. That means he was taken off of death row and was basically in prison just like a regular inmate. In 1989, he was released on parole due to prison overcrowding. That means he was released out of the system. But during that time frame, between his release date and his arrest on May 4th, 1992, he was arrested again for killing 6 women that have been verified as murder victims of Kenneth Allen McDuff. I don't know if you are familiar with this case, but the Lake Waco murders, which just happened not too far from here, 2 of the individuals involved in that was 2 of those 6 individuals he supposedly killed. They can't identify exactly how many he might have killed during that time frame. On November 17, 1998, Kenneth Allen McDuff was put to death for the abductions and murders of Melissa Northrup and Colin Reed, which are 2 of the victims from that Lake Waco murder. McDuff never expressed any remorse for his crimes. His last words, "I'm ready to be released. Release me." Think about that. No remorse at all for what he had done to these victims. And, you know, the very first murder he convicted was with a broomstick, broke the lady's neck. So you think about how these people die. Let's look at the second case. Murder of Carly Faye Tucker. I don't know if y'all know the case behind her, big stint. She was locked up in Mountain View here in Gatesville, Texas for the longest period of time. She looks very innocent. But think about this is what went on during that murder. Now, I'll give you a little background behind that murder here in a few minutes. The girl annoyed Carla Faye, so she gave it to her again and again in the chest, legs, stomach, and shoulders. Talking about the victim, the person that she murdered, was one of the females which her boyfriend was having an affair with, which she caught them in that process. Her friend, who was another man, killed her boyfriend. So she wanted to get in on the act, so she ended up killing the mistress, per se. But think about how she killed her. Now, this is some more of the stuff. The more the body seemed to quiver, the more Carla Faye struck to stop its trembling. Just because the body was trembling, she kept using the pickaxe, which was the tool she used to murder this individual. As the carcass turned to mush, blood splattered upward and across the room onto the murderers, the victim. The killing became a game to Carla Faye and to that individual that was partaking in this murder as well, because he had put a towel over her head and told her, okay, strike the towel. They made it a game. She finished off Dean, which was her lover at that point in time, or the boyfriend at that time, which was already dead. So she took that pickaxe to him with another 20 blows. Think about that. Would you want that person out here living with us today? Do you feel in your mind that the punishment that they received was a proper punishment? Think about if that was your loved one. How would you want them to die? We know now, in the death penalty in Texas, they utilize the lethal injection. They're put to sleep, actually, before they're given the cocktail that stops their heart and stops the breathing. They feel no pain. What do the victims feel in regards to those incidents? Feel the pain, the remorse that they felt when they were getting struck with that pickaxe? Go ahead, Grace. In conclusion, I have discussed with you 3 major reasons why the death penalty is not a denial of human rights, but a right of justice. Again, you make that decision. I have discussed some of the pros to the death penalty. I've also discussed some of the cons to the death penalty. And then I've discussed 2 major death penalty cases in Texas. Again, it's your decision. But which way do you weigh? Go ahead, Grace. The death penalty in Texas, before you make a decision about which way you view the death penalty in Texas, consider what has been discussed and weigh all the options.
Hey, Roy. You know it's 9 minutes already.
Is the death penalty a denial of human rights or a right of justice? Any questions? Thank y'all.